camera. Give it off, down.
James Cameron has always been concerned with the capacity of mankind to destroy itself, generally through a naive interaction with technology that ultimately winds up spiraling out of our control. Rarely does he get as blunt as he does in The Abyss, however, his 1989 opus on the perils of nuclear warfare and how an impartial observer might view humanity as it sits on the brink of self-annihilation. It's not a subtle film by any means, but it still features some wonderful performances and special effects that were groundbreaking at the time. It might not be the film that first pops into mind when you say Cameron's name, but that doesn't make it any less fitting as an entry into Screen's series of besties.
Yeah, Kirker, what's going on? Yeah, I'm calm. I'm a calm person.
That mostly starts with Ed Harris, who delivers one of the best lead performances in a Cameron film as Virgil Brigman.
What?
Leader of a group of oil drillers working on a prototype underwater rig. Before they can prove their technology works, though, their entire ship is commandeered by the Navy, intent on discovering what happened with a nuclear sub that crashed some miles away.
Codenamed Operation Salvo.
You want us to search for the sub?
This being a film set in 1989, they suspect Soviet involvement in the sub's demise and send a team of Navy SEALs down to the rig with orders to find out what happened, rescue any survivors, and, failing that, recover the ship's nuclear warheads.
How many are there?
24 Trident missiles, 8 MIRVs per missile.
It's 192 warheads, Coffee.
Of course, everyone gets more than they bargained for. Bergman has to deal with the arrival of his bitchy, soon-to-be ex-wife, Lindsay.
Well, Mrs. Brigman.
Not for long.
The SEALs on the rig's crew have to deal with each other.
What is your problem, huh? On this dive, you'll do absolutely nothing without direct orders from me, and you'll follow those orders without discussion. Is that clear?
And everyone has to deal with the presence of curious little aliens who seem to shut off the power of any electrical system that they encounter. Except when they don't, indicating that they can choose not to, indicating that their sinking of the sub was a curious little flub on their part. Although the alien effects might look a wee bit dated now, it's worth remembering that the film was released in 1989, at what might as well have been the dawn of feature-quality CGI. The Abyss won an Oscar for visual effects, and featured a memorable 75-second scene featuring the water-based pseudopod.
It's trying to communicate.
Which, according to some sources, is the first three-dimensional CGI character to interact with live-action actors. While CGI has advanced far beyond the tools that were available at Cameron's disposal 20 years ago, it's still an impressive piece of movie history.
It's okay.
What is it? Is it alive?
Beyond that scene, though, the film features an extensive use of miniatures and underwater sets to make you believe that the actors involved are really 2,000 feet underwater. Even if their actions are sometimes impossible given those depths, such as when Virgil swims freely underneath his rig to avoid some locked doors. Still, the chase between two submersibles is remarkably well done, considering the difficulties that working underwater must have caused, and the extensive underwater sequences where the actors get a great sense of the isolation caused by their surroundings.
Ensign Monk wants to know how you feel.
All of the technical wizardry of the film wouldn't mean much if it weren't wedded to something meaty, and Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio both give performances in that excellent but slightly over-the-top vein that Cameron seems to bring out of his actors.
Thank you.
Although the director's cut is a bit bloated, with a running time half an hour longer than the theatrical release, the cattiness between the two feels authentic. While the beginning portions of the director's cut take a bit too much time introducing us to the generally annoying members of Virgil's crew.
Whoa. I'm not going near no radiation. No way.
I hippie, you pussy.
Yeah, what good is the money? 6 months later, your dick drops off.
The latter half focuses more solidly on Bud and Lindsay, upping the ante by putting them in a leaking submersible with no way for both of them to survive. Lindsay's solution is fairly ingenious.
You've got the suit on, and you're a much better swimmer than I am, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Right? Yes! So I've got a plan.
What's the plan?
I drowned and you tow me back to the rig.
No, No!
Yes, this water.
No!
Only a couple of degrees above freezing. I go into deep hypothermia. My blood will go like ice water. Right? My body systems will slow down. They won't stop.
That, of course, leads to one of the best CPR scenes you'll ever see in a movie. In the hands of, say, a Nicolas Cage, it could have been ridiculous. But Harris seems to be able to restrain his emotions just enough to make the tension feel palpable and real. The outcome of CPR scenes in films are generally inevitable, but Cameron goes pretty far to convince you that Lindsay is actually dead here, which might make her eventual resuscitation a bit ridiculous, but still immensely satisfying.
It's all over. I'm sorry.
No pulse.
Of course, he can't help but mirror that sequence a few minutes later by having Virgil drown himself, albeit in liquid oxygen.
Take it in. That's it. Oh, man. Don't hold your breath now. Take it in. There you go.
The use of liquid oxygen was controversially employed in the film, as a rat was actually submerged in the stuff without the use of special effects, causing the scene in question to be heavily edited for overseas release. Still, the resultant trip that allows Virgil to take is memorable, especially as it results in a unique twist on the old red wire, blue wire bomb defusing scene.
You have to cut the ground wire, not the lead wire. It's the blue wire with the white stripe, not, I repeat, not the black wire with the yellow stripe.
In the end, the Abyss is weighed down by a mawkish little ending. The aliens, you see, are disappointed by humanity's propensity for warring amongst ourselves, despite the fact that they caused the latest outbreak of saber rattling by sinking a nuclear submarine. It's a maudlin little anti-nuclear ending of the sort that aspires to be on the level of The Day the Earth Stood Still, but instead manages to hit the not-so-great heights of 2012 instead. It's pretty bad, but doesn't quite counteract the rest of the film that precedes it. While The Abyss might be a bit too on the nose in terms of representing Cameron's obsession with the self-destructive nature of man and the peril of nuclear warfare, it still features some of the better actors he's worked with. And while the director's cut of the film feels really self-indulgent, the original cut is still a remarkably tense look at a struggle between good and evil in a place where someone might be able to hear you scream, but no one will be able to do anything about it. It's aged a bit, sure, but that doesn't mean it's not worthy of a screen bestie.